Hi cake friends, let's do watercolor today, and I have already smoothed the cake with acrylic disc on the top. I actually recently feel that this is the method that I like because you have the acrylic disc on top when you're trying to smooth it out. Look at that, like the cake is very smooth and it's a lot faster, I feel. So I just need to remove this acrylic disc on the top and then just smooth it out on the top a little bit, and then we're gonna do the watercolor after that. Just carefully trying to remove the acrylic disc, and I lost that later. And then underneath the acrylic disc there's a parchment paper so that the disc won't stick on the cake when you're trying to remove it. That's why we have the parchment paper here. One thing you want to make sure of is your cake is cold, so put that in the fridge while you're coloring your buttercream. And the request is purple buttercream, as you saw in the preview, purple watercolors. So just use your gel food coloring and then keep mixing it until you have a pretty deep purple color, and then you can always mix it with white to achieve the lighter color. And when the request is just one color, I like to have a different shade of the purple color in this case. So I mix in a little bit of blue and then see how we can create a different shade of purple. So that's what I am doing right now. And you know, depending on how much of your blue that you're adding, basically that's how much like what your shade is turning out. So just play around with it, and I'm actually quite loving how very purple bluish. It's just a tint of purple there. I'm quite liking the color. And yeah, so again, you can always mix with white to give you a lighter version of the color. Here is a lighter version of this bluish. It's almost like very blue, yeah, but you can always add a little bit of purple. And with purple, right, like you can have like that bluish tone, or you can have a reddish purple tone and create your pink color, and then mix your the purple with the pink to create a different shade of the purple. Look at that, like it's pretty. And then you have like a color palette of purple basically. And yeah, so the middle one you have the purple that you have, and then the left is the blue shaded one, and the right is the pink, more of the reddish purple. And we're going to use this combination of all of this to create the watercolor for our cake. And I can sort of get lost with not lost, but like I enjoy the coloring so much that, you know, it's, oh, by the way, like you need a flat surface to create your color palette, right? Like it's just easier to mix the color and everything. And making sure your cake is cold basically. And that is my husband on the background. Like he probably doesn't want himself to get shown in the video, but he was trying his new vacuum that he bought. And yeah, so we'll start with any color you like. It can be the deep color. I used the lighter color of the purple, and spacing a different color shade around, and then just sort of play around with it using the palette knife, and then scraping it off with a scraper. And look at that, like how it sort of have that watercolor-ish effect. and that's what you get when you scrape it off, or like when you know, have a just creating because the cake is cold, right? So when you're doing this, you're sort of putting a smear of paint, edible paint, which is your, you know, the buttercream, onto the cake. And it is just so lovely. It's amazing. And it's, I don't know, it's very real. I don't know. It can be relaxing, but it can also be overthinking that I sometimes do this. But try to have fun, you know, like don't overthink it too much. Just have a different location where you put your color and variation of the depth of color that you put. Like if you put the lighter color, then you also put the darker color like in the closer to that, or like slightly different space. Just have that play around with that color that you are already you created, right? And then when you scrape it off with palette knife, yeah, like just scrape it off like that, could create like some of the effects. And sometimes you could see that here so far I haven't been using the cake scraper at all, and I'm using my palette knife to add it sort of like that, you know, like smooshing, like swooshing the buttercream around like that, and it's already have that watercolor effect. So sometimes if you don't want to use the scraper, you really don't need to. It's creating a little bit more texture, I'll say, because when you use your cake scraper, you are gonna mix some of the color that you already put on the cake a little bit, so it's having like a little bit more smearing effect, and you will sometimes like a pleasantly surprised with the effect that you're getting. So, but I always like to start with, like, you see like that random from top diagonal to bottom that I did. It's, you know, sometimes you can do like left to right, or like even like diagonal movement. It will create a very interesting effect, and you will play around with it. And I like to add white also, because once you add the color, here we have a white background cake and then the purple, and then just adding white buttercream here and there, you will create that also, you know, just like a light touch of it. Like here I'm just scraping off lightly, and if you want just some part of it, you can use the less wider version, or the side of your cake scraper, and yeah, you can either clean off your scraper or not, and then you can add a little bit of more color onto it. When you clean off your scraper, of course, like you're starting with a little bit of clean slate rather than adding more of buttercream on your cake. And look at that, like you zoom out if you can. Just look at it from a first perspective instead of like zooming in too much, because sometimes I could get like, oh, like this could take forever, by the way. I was like, there is an art of like, okay, when is it to stop adding color? Because that is an art by itself, really. Like it's one person could like stop here, like you could really love it, but like I tend to go more, or I don't know, like it's hard for me to stop. It's like maybe it's the perfectionist in me, like oh god, like oh yeah, it could add a little bit more, like, but yeah, that is an art by itself. If you know how you know is, I don't know, like if you have any tips like of well, I don't know, I guess it's just, you just have to come to terms, at least I had to come to terms with it, like, you know, this is the part of the process. It's kind of a little bit of messy, and that's the part of the art, you know, like the watercolor art on this cake. And you can add a little bit of texture after you scrape it off as well, different colors, so just different kind of like texture adding there. It's making the cake look interesting. And this is the cake that on the signature, one of the signature cake of my local wedding, local cake that I made for people here in Michigan. By the way, that's where I live, in Michigan. And I love how signature cake is. Basically, this is the design that I have. There's a few selection of there, and you can just select a variation of color. So they just put in like whatever color they want, and it's such a very useful, at least I think for a customer, like there's that because they don't know what they're getting sometimes. So it's a nice way for them to get inspiration. It's like, okay, like we as the artists, like we are the designer, so like put something that we enjoy creating there. Like here I this is one of the things that I thought it would be cool, semi custom cake that people can just choose the color, and I don't really have to think about you know, customize every single cake, because that takes time to think about the design. So yeah, like if you've never have like a signature cake for people to buy, you might want to consider that. Thank you so much for watching, and please hit like and comment about this particular cake. Did you enjoy it or not? Thank you.